Hi everyone, it's Fiona here from fionamarks.com, and I am today back with you doing a kind of hybrid of sharing some themes from a reading, but also rather than looking at the whole reading, I really want to talk with you about how charts sometimes slash often set up for us to experience obstacles, and how we can maybe think that that is a sign that we're going in the wrong direction and we lose our confidence or we doubt ourselves, and that astrology is really helping us to correct that perception and just notice that, of course, when I make a step in that direction, these opposing forces will occur. So it's a combination of share themes from reading, but also from the Agony in the Chart series that I'm doing about how astrology really helps us as life coaches to come to the stillness of accepting where we are before we make forward motion. All right, so then let me share the screen with you here. So we have a beautiful chart to talk about today. Let's reorientate ourselves to this style of chart, just in case we haven't seen it for a while. So the first thing to know is that the zodiac signs stay still in this chart, and Aries is therefore always up here in the top, or the second box on the top row. And then they move clockwise. So this is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and then in the bottom corner here is Virgo, then Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, and finally coming up the hill for Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So that is why the names of the zodiac don't even get on there, because we just know exactly where they're placed, because always stay still. And it's the planets and the houses that move around. So let's catch up on our planets then. Perhaps where we'll start is actually all the way down here in Libra. We've got VE for Venus and ME for Mercury. So Venus and Mercury were in Libra. And then we have MO for Moon, SU for Sun, and MA for Mars. So there were 3 planets in the sign of Scorpio, or in that space in the sky. Then over here in Capricorn, we have Saturn, and in Aquarius, we have JU for Jupiter and KE for K2, which is an eclipse point, and is considered important in Vedic astrology, and has a matching pair always with Rahu, always 180 degrees away, and there is Rahu in Leo. So just from having a look at the planets, we can notice actually that the planets are kind of bunched up in this chart, because in fact you can't see Rahu in the sky and you can't see K2. So really, in terms of visible planets in the sky, they were here between Libra, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius. Now, the final thing that we need to remind ourselves about reading the chart is, where is the ascendant? Where was planet Earth when this happened, this amazing being arriving? And the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the time of the birth was Leo, making Leo the first house, the rising sign or the ascendant. And this also moves clockwise. So first house, second house in Virgo, third house in Libra, fourth house in Scorpio, fifth house in Sagittarius, sixth house in Capricorn, seventh in Aquarius, and eighth in Pisces. And then we've got the ninth house being Aries, 10th house Taurus, 11th Gemini, and 12th house for Cancer. So that just gets us on the map. Now, these houses, the numbers, they help us know where the karmas are going to play out in the person's life. Okay, so as we said, a bit of a hybrid chart. So let's do just a little bit of summary. We've mentioned planets a little bit close together, and in the first half of the hero's journey, between the first house and the seventh house. And another couple of things that we can notice is that Venus is in its own home, And Saturn is also in its own home, and so is Mars. So 3 planets in their own home, giving them a kind of strength and a comfort with the field in which they're trying to manifest the karmas that they're here to experience. Can't see this here on the screen, but actually Sun is the only planet that is in Yuva or Kumara Avashta, meaning that it's ripe for the karma to be played out. So Sun's quite important in some ways. And then another thing that we could notice is that the moon is in its debilitation sign. Again, you can't see the degrees here, but actually it's very much at the beginning of Scorpio. So the moon finds Scorpio the least effective place for it to be placed in some ways. Certainly it's called its debilitation sign. So we can take that into the mix. Okay, and then obviously another overall thing to notice is that we have Rahu on the ascendant, which is going to give the person a fascination for the self, but also a sense of the complete unknowingness of the self. Okay, so a few summary points then. Let's see. Obviously, there are a few things in this chart which are pointing towards a spiritual experience for this person. The first one is that the ascendant lord, which means the planet that's ruling the first house, so the planet ruling Leo, which is the sun has gone into the 4th house in Scorpio. And the 4th house is considered to be a moksha sign. That is, when we think of the Vedic 4 paths of life, the artha of the things that you must do to look after your physical security and comfort, karma of the desires that we've come here to experience in the body, dharma of the inspiration and I think of it as like the things that your soul must do, what you're inspired to do. And moksha is the enlightenment path, moving us towards our evolution. So we can say that we know that this person is going to have a spiritual push in their life in a way because their ascendant lord has gone into a moksha house. And not only that, this moksha house is taking place in Scorpio, which is also a very spiritual sign because it is the 8th sign of the zodiac. The number 8 is also a moksha number. And Scorpio has that sense of the caves, the darkness, the inner world, the realm beneath the earth, all of those esoteric things that are a little bit hidden, but that actually we must face our deepest, darkest caves and our demons. So a few indications there for a spiritual bent to this chart. Now, it doesn't end there because the 12th Lord is also in the 4th house and in Scorpio. And the 12th is the other moksha house. So now we've got the 4th, the 8th, the 12th, all kind of popping up here, repeating this idea of the moksha journey in this chart, the enlightenment journey. And the 12th house is Cancer, and Cancer's ruled by the moon, and where is the moon? It's also in the 4th house. Now, as well as that, we have Jupiter being the 8th lord. So of this moksha number 8, the ruler of the 8th house is Jupiter, considered to be a very spiritual planet, a wise planet, a philosophical planet, all of that spiritual wisdom. Jupiter is called Guru in Sanskrit, so bringing all of that teacher kind of energy with it. And that 8th Lord Jupiter is with Ketu, and perhaps Ketu is the most spiritual planet in Vedic astrology. I mean, these things are arguable, but Ketu, especially when it's with Jupiter, it highlights that spiritual element of Ketu. Okay, those were the things that were exactly just to give a bit of a summary of maybe a main theme for this person's life. that their life path, their first house, has gone into a moksha house, and then it's backed up by all these other moksha indications. Another very strong theme in this chart is this potent fourth house. We've talked about the fourth house being about enlightenment. We've talked about the sign of Scorpio being what's beneath the surface. Remember, it's a water sign, but it's that deep, dark water. And we can see that there is a lot of potency packed into this fourth house. We have got, number one, a debilitated moon in the fourth house. This is showing us that the moon, that already owns a water sign up here in Cancer, can struggle in Scorpio because it's deep, dark water, and our emotions, the moon, can get pulled into that deep space, and it's murky and unfathomable, unplumbable. You know, it's so deep, there's no ground there. You just keep going and going. So you can get really taken by these undercurrents, taken by the undertow. So can be a tricky place for the moon. However, it is important to remember that the moon has a lot of digbala when it is in Scorpio. So, or when it's, so we can hear it. And I think that gives the moon a lot of potential if we're willing to ride that journey of the darker emotions, and we can find a way to be fearless and allow our life to express in its full range of experience and emotion. So there's a real invitation when the moon is there in Scorpio. Other things that are going on in the fourth house. We've got the sun combusting both the moon and Mars. So this is difficult. We could say that the moon here is very dark. It's on its way to being a new moon, very close to being a new moon. And therefore, it's not reflecting any light from our perspective. And the person may feel that their emotions are not seen, they're not validated. It can be hard to own the depth of the agony of these feelings because they're not, the light is not seeing them. And with Mars being combust, it can be a very frustrating experience as well. So we've got these two planets being combust by the sun. Then we also have Moon and Mars in the same house, same sign. So that's a yoga in Vedic astrology that can give us a very challenging relationship with our mother. And the sun being here is also an indicator for a father. The fourth house is our heart and our inner contentment. It's our inner world, whereas Leo was the sign that was rising when the person was arriving in the body. So that was the eastern horizon. This, the fourth house, was below the earth at the time. So if you think of the highest point of the sky, that's the 10th house when you're born. The fourth house is 180 degrees away from that. It's the end of the other axis. So it's right underneath where you were born, or underneath the earth. So it's a bit of a hidden place, an inner place. It also represents our mother and our home. So when we can see that there is this Moon-Mars tension, there is also the sun causing combustion, we can have the idea that this person's inner emotional experience, perhaps in their home, perhaps with their parents, was very challenging. And I've used the word here potent because if one survives these experiences and can open the heart and heal, then there's an enormous amount of potential there, the raw material to really grow a beautiful heart and a beautiful life. But that is not to take away anything from the intensity and brutal setup that is there in this fourth house. Another thing to note is that we have the fourth lord, which in this case is Mars, in the fourth house with a malefic in the fourth house. You can take your pick here. The sun or the moon both have malefic status here because of their placement. And when that happens, it can mean that we even internalize from ourselves the trauma and the pain that we're going through, and perhaps create a cheerful exterior that is very believable even to ourselves and certainly to those around us. But inside, we may be deceiving ourselves or cutting ourselves off from what we're really feeling. And I would highlight that this is not deceit for, I don't know, any kind of gain, really. It's like survival and self-protection. So what a wonderful protection malefics are actually providing for us here, in allowing us to get through these intense traumatic experiences by being able to keep a part of that negativity even shielded from ourselves for some period. But obviously, the aim is that when one reaches safe port, when one is at a place in one's life where we can unpack all of that baggage, that then we have the opportunity to stop deceiving ourselves and to really listen to that tender and traumatized heart or emotional experience. So it's kind of like a great survival skill, but can lead us to become unaware of our own emotions. And it's beautifully matched or highlighted, or the light is shining on it because Mars is also in its own home in an angle. So it's radiant and cheerful and bright and sharp and full of energy. And I think that these two things can go hand in hand, even though they sound like they wouldn't. One can have deep buried pain that for survival one just doesn't address or look at, just can't incorporate, and yet can tap into that brightness and radiant energetic energy of having such a well-placed Mars in its own home in an angle. So as always with life, there is a beautiful distribution of many different planetary energies. Okay, so this is like a summary of the chart, which is not even, so that's like for the bit of the themes from a reading part of this chart. But putting that to one side, I also wanted to make this video to remind us that there are often things in our charts that hold us back from our own success. And if you've grown up around about the age that I am, you may have grown up in that whole new age wave of Louise Hay and, follow your bliss. And when you're doing what you came here to do, what your soul journey is, you are going to be in the zone and everything is going to feel great and it's going to be easy. And that's how you know that you're doing what you should be doing here on the planet. And that sounds beautiful. And I love that. And of course, astrology does support that. But it's very much, that energy is very much talking about a dynamic chart. So if your first lord goes into a dharmic house, the first house, the fifth house, or the ninth house, or those lords, the fifth lord or the ninth lord, the first lord, have interchange between those dharmic houses, then that may absolutely be your experience of success and of doing what you feel called to do. You may feel that the waters part and everything becomes easy. And that's wonderful. And you probably never need to see an astrologer, and just keep up the good work and enjoy it and keep going. However, for many of us, we don't necessarily have Dharma as the main theme of what we've come here in this lifetime to do. We might be on a moksha path or a karma path or an artha path. And regardless of whether we have Dharma, karma, artha, or moksha path, there can be active obstacles that when you are taking steps in forward motion, they will activate and actively sabotage you. And that's why this video is also fitting into the agony part of the series that I'm doing, that it's just really good to know that that's a possibility and that you're right on track. So not to be deterred by those things, because if you remember, this birth chart is what will happen in your life if you stay on automatic pilot. If you just do everything automatically, then this chart is going to be very accurate. But you have free will all the time. And if you want to make a different action, you can do that at any time. However, when you make that different action, it's going to take awareness. So you need attention. So you need that free conscious space at your disposal. And you're going to feel the pushback against the inertia or against the tide. So as long as you stay asleep and you just stay on automatic pilot, the tide is going to push you where your chart is going. If you acknowledge your chart and you can see the lessons that are there and you feel that you've absorbed them, learned them, digested them, integrated them, and you want to make a change, you can do that, but you're going to feel pushback. So my hope in this video is to remind you that feeling obstacles coming in your path, finding that every time you head in that direction, you get obstacles, these are not a sign that you shouldn't be heading in that direction. They're just your chart. So you just acknowledge them. Is that in my chart? Yes, it is. Great. Then I'm right on track and I'm going to keep moving forward. So in this particular chart, there are a few things. And it's actually the final ones that I want to talk about. But there's some, maybe some that stand out straight away. One is having Rahu on the first house. The first house is our life path. When we have Rahu there, our life path is possibly obscured from us. Rahu is like this creator of illusion and delusion, of confusion. So we might be very confused about our life path, but completely fascinated, but have absolutely no practical ideas or experience of how to head in that direction. So we're lost in the fog going somewhere that we don't even know where it is, but we really want to get there. So that could be something that comes up. In this chart, we have the sun, the ascendant lord, is actually only with 81% of its Shadbala. So we're probably going to feel that perhaps we don't have that sense of soul calling that maybe we think other people have. So just something to be aware of. And this is where astrology really helps us to not compare ourselves to anybody else, because everybody's sun's at different amount of potency in different houses with different issues going on. But this is something that the person may feel. And Jupiter, which actually for the career path that this session we were talking about is important. Jupiter has only 2 points out of 60 of Digbala. And Digbala is our ability to hear the planet. And so this person may experience that they are not able to connect, for example, with a teacher. Remember, we were talking about guru, Jupiter being guru. Maybe they are very interested in that spiritual path or philosophical path or religious path, but they just can't hear from a teacher. They're going to have to learn that on their own, muddling through, and maybe rely on some of their other planets with strong Digbala to make up for what Jupiter would have taught through a guru or a teacher. And isn't it interesting that the moon there in Scorpio, debilitated for sure, but very strong Digbala. So this person probably has an ability to listen to their intuition, their female side, or their emotions that is well above average. Okay, but now in terms of obstacles coming up on the road, let's check out this one. There's a specific yoga when you have the sun, moon, and Mars joined in I've written here the first, but actually it's the fourth, because it's any angle. So first, fourth, seventh, 10th, and it's also 9th and 12th. When those are joined together and they are without strength, the person can have difficulty initiating their desires or inspirations, and they feel like they can't take advantage of opportunities. So let's have a look at how this yoga is playing out. Do we have the Sun, Moon, and Mars joined together? We do. They are on an angle. And are they all without strength? And this is where the yoga thing comes in mind, that if you want to see yogas that really play out in someone's life, you have to look at all the conditions being met, and you have to look at that yoga judgment score. And this is a brilliant in the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program. There's a whole semester on yogas, and not just named yogas, which is what we're kind of looking at today, but just understanding yogas, where these placements are, where these combinations happen, and how to actually calculate whether they're going to be powerful or not. So let's see if we can meet these conditions without strength. So the Sun, we know, is 7th in Shadbala. We actually happen to know that it's actually only got 81%. So it's even under the 100% Shadbala. The Moon is debilitated, and Mars is the 5th in Shadbala. So I think we can say that they are without strength. And then these are the yoga judgment scores for the various planets. We've got the Sun, Moon, and Mars there with their scores. And so we know that particularly during dasha periods involving the Sun, Moon, and Mars, or even more when we're involving all three, this is a time when the person may feel thwarted, or may just really even be amazed at their own ability to not move forward. They might even notice, what is it that I'm, how can I not be taking these steps? But it's because of these three planets together. And this is actually can be called stupid man yoga, which seems a bit extreme to me. But when I was with this person, they actually mentioned that during their school years, they sometimes felt that maybe they were, maybe there was something about them. So this is where astrology is very helpful in us coming now to stillness and just looking that in the eye and saying, that is there. That is going to be an experience that I'm having whenever I'm trying to initiate my desires or inspirations. And I'm going to feel like I didn't take advantage of opportunities. I'm going to feel like I was stupid, So we just say, okay, all right, well, that's okay that I feel like that. That's okay that experience happens. Now, what can I do about it? So we don't fight against it. We don't try and nuke it out of our chart. There's nowhere for it to go. It's right there. But we just accept that we're going to feel like that from time to time, and we don't take it personally. It doesn't become part of our story, part of our identity, part of our beating ourselves up or losing hope or faith in ourselves. We just go, oh yeah, it's like a feature, a weather or whatever, something that is just a fact. It's just out there, and we deal with it. We just acknowledge it and take intelligent action around it or under it or over it or through it. We look for our ways. And there is also another one here in the chart, which is a malefic moon. So that is a waning moon, which this one is just waning towards being new. And it is debilitated during a night birth. And that is the case because here is the rising horizon. And we know that the 10th was at the top of the sky. So we know that from 1 to 7 was the rising horizon, and from 7 to 1 was the setting or the night or the underneath the earth. So this was a night birth. And that also brings difficulties fulfilling one's goals and desires. So we we notice that it will be normal. That is, no need to panic, no need to freak out. It will be normal in this chart that I can notice that I have some difficulty taking the initiative, starting things, making things happen, moving forward, achieving my goals. That's just normal. That's like, I don't know, your house is at the top of a hill and you have to wait a little bit longer. You're on the shadow side of the hill. You have to wait a little bit longer for the sun to come up. And that's fine. You just deal with that, you know? And that is what astrology is giving us the chance to do, is stop telling stories about ourselves to ourselves that are unhelpful and unmotivating. Give us the tools to look these things in the eye, to notice that they both involve the moon. What can I do around that? They involve my ascendant planet, so of course I'm going to feel it more strongly. And I'm not worried about that. I can still move forward. I can still make any choice that I want to. And every time an obstacle comes in this regard, that I feel like I miss an opportunity or that I'm slower than everybody else at getting started, you know, I got these private ideas in my fourth house, but I'm not actually manifesting them yet. That's okay. Keep going. And this is a little bit where we use Saturn's approach to resolving problems. And this chart has a lovely Saturn in Capricorn in its own home, in that sixth house of just do it anyway. Don't ask. There's no strategy here. There's no motivation. It's just put one foot in front of the other and keep heading in that direction. Even if you're moving a millimeter at a time, you just keep going forward and don't allow any data about obstacles to get into your heart or head about your identity, that you are not good enough, or this is a sign that you shouldn't be doing this forward motion. In fact, it's not that at all. It's that because of where your chart is, when you try to push your cart forward, you have to push it straight up a very steep hill. That is just the placement of where it is, where your chart is. So for you to get something started, it's a lot of slow, strong pushing this cart up a hill. For someone else, because of their chart where it is, they maybe even just sit in their cart and it rolls down the hill, and that's their forward progress super fast, taking them to exactly where they want to go. It's wonderful. That's their chart. This chart may have a lot of uphills at the beginning of projects and goals and ambitions, and that is normal. That's the part of the earth that this chart is taking place on. So I hope that that helps you to get an idea of how astrology can unpack for us obstacles that we may notice, that we feel perhaps there's something flawed about us or wrong with us, or that we're on the wrong path. And astrology is saying, not at all. You have free will to do anything that you want to do. And it may be the case that where you have to push your cart is hilly or rocky or very steep up. And that doesn't mean that you can't push your cart. It just means the experience is going to involve effort and attention, and that Saturnian one foot in front of another without questioning your strategy. Just keep moving forward regardless of the terrain. Okay, wonderful to spend time with you. I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye for now.